To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Art Commission, the public can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For all of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available. You can access it at the bottom of the screen. If you're having trouble locating the button, please chat us for assistance.
Thank you, Paul. And thanks everyone for being here. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. For transparency and community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at these public meetings of the Boston Art Commission on a regular, usually monthly basis. Working together with the Public Art Team and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the BAC is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members appointed by the mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or placed on city property. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture has a dedicated public art team that facilitates the BAC's public meetings, manages all phases, daily operations, and duties related to public art projects on or proposed for city property in collaboration with the Boston Art Commission, community members, and colleagues at the City of Boston. Helping to facilitate this meeting today are Sarah Rodrigo, Senior Public Art Project Manager, Amber Torres, Public Art Project Manager, and Alexandra Paul Zotov, Public Art Registrar. And we will add our contact information to the chat. And with that, I will pass to Chair John Andrus.
Thanks, Karen, and welcome everyone. I call this public hearing to order at 4:34 p.m. Today, the Commission is holding its monthly public meeting. Our meetings are generally held on the second Tuesday of every month, and we hope you'll continue to join us. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people and the neighboring Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge the atrocities committed against Indigenous peoples, all of the communities that have been subsequently harmed, and the ways in which colonialism has created systemic oppression. We recognize the continuing presence of these communities and the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. We also recognize that Boston exists as a result of the forced labor and economic extraction from enslaved African Americans. I'll now take roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. I'll begin with Vice Chair Camilo Alvarez.
Here.
Cara Elliott Ortega. Robert Freeman.
Here.
Diana Fernandez-Vibo. Aqua Holmes.
Here.
Brian Hone.
Here.
And Mark Pasnick.
Here.
We have a quorum, so we can continue the meeting. On this slide, you'll see today's agenda, which is also posted publicly on the city's website, boston.gov. We'll now review meeting minutes from the September meeting, and I'm curious if there are any comments or modifications any commissioner would like to make. It seems there are none, so I'm curious if any commissioner would like to make a motion to accept the September meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the September 12th, 2023 minutes.
Thanks, Camilo. And a second?
I can second it.
Thanks, Mark. I'll now do a roll call. If you agree to accept the minutes, please say yes. Camilo?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Aqua?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So the minutes are accepted. Thanks, everyone. And now I'll turn it to Karen Goodfellow, who will highlight the presentations for public review today and give her director's report. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, John. On our posted agenda, we had 2 presentations for review tonight. Amulet, a short-term sculptural installation in the final design phase at City Hall Plaza, downtown by Rhea Vedro, proposed by the City of Boston. We had intended also to present the General Edward O. Gourdin and African American Veterans Memorial artwork for final acceptance, with a caveat that the sidearm and holster that were originally included in the approval of final design of the portrait of General Gourdin would be restored to the portrait at a future date. Since the commission approved the artwork with the sidearm, we informed the veterans and friends that it can be added back without further commission review. When we let the veterans and friends know that the commission would be reviewing the artworks for acceptance, they sent testimony. The PDF of that testimony is in your folders. In the letter, they detailed unresolved contractual issues that should be figured out before we accept the artwork. We recommend that the commission postpone review of the artworks until this issue is resolved.
So Karen, with your recommendation to postpone,
Yes.
should I offer that to the commission that we postpone this to a later date?
Yes, I think that would be best.
Okay. Do we need to take a vote on that or?
I think you should.
Okay. So now, do I have a motion to postpone the acceptance of the General Edward O. Gourdin and African American Veterans Memorial to a later date?
So moved.
Thanks, Brian. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thanks so much, Aqua. And I know we're all sure that at a later date, we'll be able to accept this in the collection, and we'll all be very excited when we do that. But for the moment, if you agree with the postponement, when I take roll call, please say yes. Camilo,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Aqua,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
The motion to postpone passes. And now I'll turn it back to you, Karen, to continue your director's report.
Thank you, John. Thank you, commissioners. For our updates about existing commissions, we are very pleased to share that fabrication has been completed for Journey of My Soul, The Legacy of Frederick Douglass by Mario Chiodo, after a drawing by Paul Goodnight for the Douglass Plaza in Lower Roxbury. This is a long anticipated project, and we are very excited to move forward with the next steps. In addition to the portraits of Douglass as an adult and a child, the artwork features full-size portraits of Douglass's son, Lewis Henry Douglass, who served in the 54th in the Civil War, and suffragist Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. And you can see images of the artworks there. Aziza Robinson Goodnight, chairperson of the Frederick Douglass Sculpture Committee, is working with the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, Public Works, and all the various design consultants to finalize the design of Douglass Plaza, which has encountered some delays due to complications at the site. We're expecting an updated design for comment this month and the release of an RFP for construction of the plaza later this winter. Senior Public Art Project Manager Sarah Rodrigo went to check on the installation of Curtis Williams' piece at the Boston Public Library branch in Oak Square, Brighton. The vinyl mural is a warm and fun presence in the newly renovated branch. This is the piece, I'm sorry, we don't have an image of this one, of the dinosaur in space, as you might remember. Curtis has proposed adding some hand-drawn elements now that the piece is installed, and we hope to share images and opening information with you soon. Project manager Amber Torres and mural consultant Liza Quinones stopped by Vine Street Community Center with Taylor Campbell from Art and Visual Communications last month for site measurements. Art and Visuals will be providing us with the estimated cost of installation, mock-ups, and specs in order for the artist Destiny Palmer to create a final rendering. We will also be working with Vine Street's staff, David Hinton, to secure a contractor and set up a timeline to prep the site while other work is being done to the building. For Bookmarked by Stu Schechter for the Mattapan branch of the Boston Public Library, we are following up with the request from the BAC from the final design review to confirm details on the spines. And 2 quotations are being reviewed by the library in order to move forward with fabrication. The final design for Amulet by Rhea Vedro will be presented after this report. And Jenny Sabin, who is designing artwork for Ruggles Corridor, and Priscilla De Carvalho, who is designing artwork for the Adams Street Library, have presented preliminary designs for public art review to the public art team review and will be coming to the BAC hopefully by the end of this winter. We'd also like to highlight that there's a great event coming up. Please join this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. for the ribbon cutting ceremony hosted by the Parks Department for the renovation of Malcolm X Park in Roxbury, which is the future site of 4% for Art projects. 3 basketball court murals by Rob Pro Black Gibbs, Sidney James, and Otra Ciudad. That's 1 court per artist and their team. And a mural by Gio Go 5 Ortega on the adjacent BCYF Shelbourne. We have a number of commissions in contracting, including grant agreements for several community or artist-initiated projects. We're anticipating releasing several calls this fall, including the Transformative Public Art Call. And on Saturday, October 21st, there is another public art event. The Women's Heritage Trail, in partnership with the Friends of the Public Garden, is hosting the premiere of the talking sculptures on the Commonwealth Avenue Mall in Back Bay. The statues will be brought to life using a QR code and cell phones, with Attorney General Andrea Campbell speaking as Abigail Adams, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley as Phyllis Wheatley, and Mayor Michelle Wu as Lucy Stone. For the existing collection, the House Doctor request for proposals is moving along and is set to be released in late October. The new contract will be for a 3-year term and will include routine conservation, major regular repair projects, emergency repairs or removals, and assessments, including assessments of new artworks that the Commission will be reviewing for acceptance. And since our last meeting, we've had 1 incident of damage surrounding public artworks. On Boston Common, the didactic signage for the Embrace was annotated, and Braille signage has been added. In the Great Hall of Faneuil Hall, conservation for the 16 by 30 foot painting, Webster's Reply to Hayne by George P.A. Healy, will begin soon. The considerable damage for the canvas in the upper left and right corners calls for emergency conservation, which will be led by Gianfranco Pocobene, Chief Paintings and Research Conservator at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And that concludes the director's report.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the 1 agenda item for review, public testimony and commission vote. Here's how you can participate in today's meeting. If you have technical difficulties, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. When public testimony is requested, you can press the raise your hand icon and we will call on you. If you are calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. Camila, do you want to read that or should I?
Our goal is this
go ahead.
A good experience for all so that community members feel comfortable sharing their feedback and questions. When you are called on, please state your name, title, program, and organization. Please keep questions and comments project specific. Be mindful of and respectful of other people's time when speaking so that other participants feel comfortable adding their comments. You can submit longer written testimony to bac@boston.gov. All written testimonies will be added to commissioner folders in advance of monthly public meetings. While you may disagree with other attendees' testimony, you may not interrupt them during their allotted time. Thank you.
Our presentation for review today is Amulet by Rhea Vedro for City Hall Plaza. Sarah Rodrigo is managing the project and will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This project is a City Commission short-term artwork for the north entrance of City Hall on City Hall Plaza. This commission approved Rhea Vedro as the artist back in 2021, I believe, and the design development was funded through Now and There's Accelerator program. I think they may be here tonight as well, so welcome to Now and There. Rhea presented to this commission earlier this year, and we're really excited to have her back today to present. So now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Rhea. You'll be hearing from me a little bit later on again. Rhea, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, so nice to see everybody again. And I'm here to share today some refinements to my design and excited to hopefully leave with your approval to move forward on Amulet, a temporary public art sculpture piece for the north entrance of City Hall. And I am a metalsmith. I'm an artist. I'm a cultural producer. I'm an educator working currently over at MIT. And I have been making for many years art that is often as small as amulets for the body as a jeweler, and then later steel welded sculpture at the scale of the human body, and more recently taking on making work at the scale of the landscape. Next slide. So today I'm going to talk with you really briefly about some of the inspiration and history of the project, work with community to date, what is happening now with this commission, and then pass it off to other members of my team to talk about fabrication and installation. So just a visual of some of my past work so you can see the aesthetic that will be similar in terms of tonality and material for the proposed project Amulet. I work a lot with imagery of birds, of mystical saddles, and kind of futuristic and antique ideas of armor and amulet and vulnerability. And this motif of the bird appears again and again in my work as I think about birds as carrying prayers between the physical realm and the spiritual realm. And you can see I use a lot of neutral tones, steel, gold leaf, paints, waxes, and playing again with this idea of heavy and light, internal, external. Next slide. So in keeping with that bird motif, you can move forward through the work. I wanted to share with you about this specific project Amulet coming up, which is really a way for me to take some of the ideas that I've been working on about the resonance of a metal object and try to incorporate some of my community engagement work within the same piece. So next slide. This piece, as was mentioned at the top of the presentation, really came to be under the guidance of Now and There. And in 21-22, I had the honor to be an accelerator artist with Now and There's public art cohort, and came up with this idea originally to be sited at La Presti Park, and then it's evolved and now will get sited at the north entrance to City Hall Plaza. So the way that the project has evolved, the invitation, next slide, the invitation has been for the public to take a hammer and a metal chasing tool and a strip of steel, or sometimes copper, depending on the piece, and to set an intention for the safe passage of a loved one or for some internal journey that they're on. And while setting that intention, hammer what I'm calling a wish mark right into the metal piece. Then I'll be gathering up all of those small discrete metal pieces and welding them together as part of the skin of these bird forms that I'll be installing in City Hall Plaza as Amulet. So this piece already has gone through, this project has already gone through several iterations, started with workshops, primarily with the Veronica Robles Cultural Center in East Boston, also at Zoomix, Eastie Farms, Harbor Islands, at MIT, and also at the City Hall Plaza opening. Here you can see the Now and There manifestation of the project as a workbench facing City Hall Plaza in East Boston, looking across the water, where people were invited to make their mark. And that piece was a standalone installation that was up for about a month along the waterfront with signage in Spanish and English. Next slide. We're going to try to show a video. We'll see how that works. I think the next slide has that, just like a real quickie. Hopefully the audio. Yes. So now that that piece came down and the metal panel is in my studio along with hundreds of small, almost like quilt pieces of steel that I am welding together, and they are forming part of the final big bird forms that I'm proposing for my Amulet sculpture. Next slide. So now fast forward to the present day and City Hall Plaza. So this when I was working on the project, I was invited to think about where could it potentially live. And the City Hall Plaza call for temporary public art as the first sculptural installation at the north entrance to the new plaza was happening at the same time as I was wrapping up the workbench aspect of this project. And I'm so excited that I was chosen to design something for the first installation in the north entrance of City Hall. And it is going to be this, these bird forms, these bird adjacent forms. So here you can see where I'm talking about. This is a placeholder sculpture, that rectangular one. And the piece will come about 17 feet high up from ground level at the wall. Next slide. And you can see some photos I took of the site a little closer up. And next slide. And there is a rendering of the design. So there are these three forms, taking some feedback. The top swoop upwards and backwards, really trying to give a sense of motion and movement, and also kind of a protective bird family. So they won't be sheathed and solid like some of the past work that I showed. They really will be airy and light and bird bone-esque. And they will be, next slide, on top of these cement bases that will give them a little bit of lift, and that also echo and are in dialogue with some of the cement and brutalist architecture in City Hall, right in the surrounding area there. So at night they'll have lights. Next slide. I have included here, trying to get in close. I'm going to show you some texturing in another slide, but the pieces themselves, they will be constructed, as I mentioned, similar to my other sculptures with this hollow form welded metal sculpture. But instead of it being sheathed and solid, you'll see this almost sinuous, like handmade pipe, essentially, that will be made of many small pieces, but the line work will be contiguous and will have a lot of like swoops and organic and things that break free from that form, especially where there's intersections of the line work. And I will use gold leaf, aluminum leaf, and different waxes and sealants. Next slide. This is just a little GIF that shows us spinning, hopefully, rendering, so you can see all sides of the form. And if it doesn't spin,
I have another option.
That's
Rhea,
okay.
but hold on. Are you sure?
If it's easy. But as Sarah's working on that, you can see again, I just wanted to mention the base because the next slide shows I'll be constructing the bases myself with these steel under armatures, and then over that applying cement with different mica powders and sheens that will then be polished back so you can still see the wire armature coming through, which is a technique I learned from Vivian Beer, who's a wonderful local artist as well. So there you see the little spinny image, and the articulation in that base represents the steel line work that will be kind of polished back to see that. Next slide. You can go ahead to the next one, Sarah, when you get a chance. Yep. And that is just an example. That's not my work on the left. But that is the technique that I'll be using for the bases. So again, those same kind of tones with this welded under armature. Next slide. Now I want to return a little bit to just trying to illustrate the process for you, because I think it's helpful to see. So here's an example, right, of wish marks made, a prayer for Ibrahim, each hand mark, each stitched prayer mark, wish mark. Then in the next slide, you can see there is actually a little video here as well, just a couple seconds. So that I take that, it starts out flat. I cut it, I'm utilizing traditional blacksmithing and metalworking forming tools like stakes and mandrels to create volume, and then weld up the seams and create something that is more fluid, organic, round, sealed off, and still sinuous. And in that process of welding, I am burning off any text that is written on the piece and kind of sending that prayer and intention off into the world. And but I believe it is still held within the metal itself. Next slide. In the next slide, you'll see just 3 quick photos. So that's that same Ibrahim flat sheet, then formed, welded. This is just a sample to show you kind of what the texture quality, line quality will look like of the sinuous parts of the sculptures as they go up, and there'll be some thickness at the bottom. Here is some early studio sketches. That's okay, you can go there, Sarah. Some studio sketches, from along the process, really trying to show you just texture and the way the line quality will feel. This is just a paper collage in the middle, but it shows you some of the way that I anticipate the metal moving in this very organic, kind of having some weight at the bottom that feels feather-like, and I'm excited. Each one will be a little bit different. Next slide. Okay, so now I would like to pass off the talking to Bianca Mauro from BRM Productions, who's been working with me incredibly to help project manage.
Thank you, Rhea. And if you could always say my name and introduce me everywhere I go, it sounds way cooler than when I say it. Thank you, everyone. I will keep the boring construction-y bit as brief as possible. But my job in this equation is to help create an infrastructure for Rhea to then cover in her work. So my part comes in 3 pieces: the base, the body, and the wing. The base of which we're building the interior infrastructure like an Oreo cookie. So essentially we have 2 steel rings on top and bottom. That plate steel is connected by vertical supports, and then that will be brought to Rhea to do all of her armature and all of her work. You will not see any of our prefabbed work when she is done. The bird body itself the inside infrastructure is going to be 2 large curved pieces of steel tubing. All of this is going to be Schedule 40 grade. It will be engineered for all the joyous weather that Boston has to offer, plus all of the aggressive human interaction, which signage will deter. And that piece is going to be then cold connected to the bases on site. The third and final large piece of infrastructure is the wing. So the skeleton of the wing will also be tube steel, and then that will cold connect through sheathed connections and bolts on site when we do the initial installation. We can go to the next slide. So that's just some details. You can reference this later. We're going to move right on. So when we originally were speccing this, it was our understanding that the sculpture pad at the north entrance was accessible. And we have come to find out that there are now some new challenges and opportunities that I'm going to volley back to Sarah to explain to all of you.
Thanks, Bianca. So I'm going to preface this by saying that typically you wouldn't see a final design without completed engineering. But in this case, it's in the best interest of the project and the public to have the final phase of the engineering and the fabrication of the sculpture supports taking place concurrently with Rhea's sculpture fabrication. As Bianca noted, there were some challenges inherent in this. And so now we're working with SGH, who is coincidentally a plaza engineer for Sasaki and Rhea's engineer, to ensure that the supports for this artwork will coordinate with all of the elements in Rhea's artwork, but also eliminate some of the issues that Bianca alluded to. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. We have worked with Mauricio Gomez at Sasaki to come up with a plan for 9 attachment points for both Rhea's artwork and for any artwork moving forward in this space. The idea for the design is that everyone could use, any future artist and Rhea can use any or all of these 9 different attachment points, rather than excavating down to the concrete pad and then having to remediate the site for every new sculpture installation. This is supposed to be a rotating program of short-term artworks, over 2 to 3 year periods. And we don't want to be pulling up plantings, irrigation, all of these things repeatedly. So again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and show you the elevation. So what we've come up with are these attachment points. It's preliminary, but we all feel like it's very promising. These assemblies will be painted in a bronze color to match other elements on the plaza. The tops of the assemblies will be at the same datum as the granite surrounding the planting bed. And they'll be just below the average height of the plantings, the Lenten roses and other plantings there that are currently in this area of the bed. Irrigation lines and plantings can be accessed between the assemblies. No removals will be required after the initial installation unless the artist design comes down to meet ground level as Rhea's does, but the impacts will still be pretty minimal on the site. Timing wise, because we are now in an engineering phase with this, but we want to install these at the same time as Rhea's artwork, we're requesting that we could get a final design approval tonight so that we can keep these things moving together in tandem, working together, and have everything installed at the same time, which is next summer. So you can see here, very kind of high level timeline for the engineering and for these new attachment plan that will enable us to kind of fabricate things along the same timeline and then install next August. And with that, I will turn it back to Bianca.
Thank you, Sarah. We didn't want to dig up all your flowers repeatedly, so here we are. The next two slides, a lot of this is reference that you can kind of take away and look at later. It's details about the construction process, details about the materials, but there is something here I wanted to highlight is that we are aware that we are creating very open and airy structures. The bases, although coated in concrete, are not solid concrete, they're hollow inside. And so in order to deter any of Boston's furriest friends making homes in those, we did listen to some feedback that we got early on in the process, and we'll be covering all available openings in the bases on the bottom and top with a very heavy grade construction mesh that you won't be able to see, but it'll keep rodents and other small creatures out of there. We can go to the next slide. Like Sarah said, we are working very closely, obviously, with both engineering teams since they are essentially the same team. And our last phase of engineering will be getting the two designs engineered connections together. The cement bases, like I said, this all reiterates the construction process and details, but we wanted to have this information for you so you can review it later. And if anyone has any questions based on this, we are happy to take questions at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. The final step of this will be lighting the sculptures. We are also going to work closely with the city and the City Hall electrician to install infrastructure that will live beyond just this work, but will highlight Rhea's work in the way that she expects. So we'll be using LED lighting that is inside in the planter bed around the sculptures, which will come on a timer with the rest of the City Hall lighting, and will light up her sculptures at night and give them that beautiful glow like she has in her nighttime renderings. With that, I'm going to return this back to Rhea and the beautiful art part and stop with the boring construction bits.
Thank you so much, Bianca and Sarah. So yes, this timeline has continued to evolve, and at this point, we'll really looking forward to ideally installing everything in August 2024. Next slide. That's actually the last slide. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come back and talk to you about this piece. And thank you to Now and There for the opportunity to have seeded this idea and grow my practice, and to the city for this opportunity to create an amulet for the city of Boston. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks so much, Rhea. And thank you, Bianca. I don't know if she's still here, but before I turn it to commissioners, is Kay Gilbert from Now and There still here?
I am. I'm sorry.
Hey, I was just wondering if you wanted to say something in support of the project.
I do. Let me see if I can. I had to switch to a phone. I'm overdue for another meeting. I just want to say how much I appreciate what Rhea has done to listen to feedback, not only from the community that she was working with in East Boston a year and a half ago, to the feedback she's received from the BAC and some curators. I think what she's presenting here is transparent and bird-like and has a lot of movement and leaves places for people to feel included in the work. It's striking a nice balance between abstraction and representation. And I wore my amulet today in support of her in this process, and think it will be a very nice piece for the city of Boston, and want to give my support for it. And again, thank you to the BAC for your support in making this work. No one ever said public art was easy.
Thanks so much, Kate.
Thank you,
And
Kate.
now I'll turn it to commissioners with any comments and questions they may have.
I was just going to say that, Rhea, thank you so much for presenting. And I see that you've done additional work with some of the commentary that was expressed the last time we were all together. I'm curious, the beautiful paper collage that you showed us, that is more of what the surface is going to look like with all of the amulets on it. Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go back to that. I mean, that's
Yeah, I would love to.
a much earlier, months and months ago. But yes, I was trying to strike a balance in sharing you, a professional rendering where I had kind of given them the paper that's on the left with like, this is what I want you to do to this white image. But because it's so thin and so sinewy, it didn't really represent in that way digitally as much as some of that earlier studio play I was doing with just paper and glue. So I did include this older collage just to show you, yes, there'll be this variation in texture and kind of playing with the different ways that I invoke the idea of like feather or wing, but still in a line work way rather than like a sheathed solid like most of the other pieces I shared.
Yeah, I'm really glad you included it because it feels like your work. And so I have a really powerful sense now of what the finished product will look like and all the tonality and the textures and things like that. So I'm really glad you included that this time, and nicely done.
Thank you, Ekwa. Thank you for the opportunity.
I would just echo what Kate said, that I think you've been incredibly responsive to the comments from last time, and really appreciate how the project has evolved. So thank you very much for working with us.
Thank you, Mark.
Similarly, Rhea, I'm excited about this project. And last time, I think I remarked on just the quality of community engagement that went into this project. I know it's been a journey, and it's been really fun to see the project evolve across different sites and different communities. And I'm excited to see it kind of sited where it is. That corner of the plaza has just become a really kind of fun space within City Hall. There's, that wonderful kind of playground right across from it, a lot of kids and families playing all of the time. And I love that play between the sculpture and kind of what's encountered in the vicinity of it. So just excited about, the final installation. I think there's some fun opportunities for signage too. I know that's a little bit kind of further down the line, but all of the images you're showing as part of the presentation are really cool and a really kind of fun look into your studio practice. And it would be fun to kind of show that to the visitors who are also encountering the piece in its physical form too. So again, just thank you, and excited for the project.
Thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, I would love to have like a little quick video at the end that shows, I've already have video from the now and there portion, but to continue and have that available somehow, at least on the city website, if nowhere else. And I promised Sarah, I'll have my husband and heavy people hang on the sculptures in case any kids wander over from the playground. We'll do lots of testing in addition to the engineered armatures underneath everything. But yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
Any other commissioner comments or questions? I'll now open it up to any members of the public that would like to make a comment. Hearing none, I'm curious, any commissioner would like to make a motion for acceptance of final design?
I'll make a motion for acceptance of final design of Amulet by artist Rhea Vedro.
Thanks so much, Brian. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Camilo. Commissioners, when I call your name, please say yes if you accept final design. Camilo,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Aqua,
Yes.
Brian,
Enthusiastic, yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and I say yes as well. Rhea, congratulations. Bianca, thanks so much. Really excited to see this come to life next summer on the plaza.
Thank you all
Congratulations.
so much. I'm so excited. And again, thank you to Sarah and to the whole Boston Art Commission team and to Bianca and to Kate, and just really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just honored to help Rhea.
Right. Congratulations, everybody. So I think
And now that was our final order of business, correct, Karen?
yep.
Yes. So now the last thing we need to do is for someone to make a motion to call for adjournment.
I make a motion that we call for an adjournment of this wonderful meeting.
Thanks so much, Aqua. Second,
I'll second that.
please say yes if you would like to adjourn when I call your name. Camilo,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Aqua,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
I say yes as well. Thanks so much for your time and for being here with us today. And have a great rest of the month. Thanks, everyone.
Great seeing you all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, John, Camilla.
Bye.